There is a place on the moon so dangerous that every human mission in history deliberately avoided it. NASA is sending people there anyway. This is why. The South Pole of the moon is not a place. It is a contradiction. Peaks that receive near-constant sunlight, rising beside craters so deep, so ancient, that their floors exist in a darkness that has lasted 4 billion years. A place where two realities exist meters apart, one bathed in the light of the sun, one locked in a cold so absolute it approaches the theoretical limits of temperature itself. Minus 250 degrees Celsius at the crater floors. Colder than Pluto. The sun never rises above the horizon here. It crawls along it, casting shadows that stretch for kilometers, turning every boulder, every ridge, every crater, rim into a maze of blinding light and absolute darkness, with no middle ground between them. The elevation changes near the lunar South Pole are greater than the height of Mount Everest. Slopes steep enough that a misstep does not mean a stumble. It means a fall into a crater that has not seen light since before the dinosaurs walked the Earth. And this is where Artemis 3 is landing. Not beside it. Not near it. On it. The suits Artemis 3 will wear, built by Axiom Space, have been redesigned from the ground up for these conditions. Enhanced insulation for cold that no previous spacesuit was ever asked to survive. New joint systems for terrain no human has ever traversed. Thermal management for temperature swings that would have destroyed Apollo's equipment entirely. They have never been tested in the actual environment they were designed for, because that environment exists only on the moon. There is no chamber on Earth cold enough. No facility on this planet that can simultaneously replicate the vacuum, the radiation, the ancient dust, and the terrain of the lunar South Pole. The first real test of those suits will happen when two human souls step out of the airlock, on the surface, with no room for the suits to fail. But the cold and the terrain, as terrifying as they are not the thing that keeps NASA's engineers awake at night. Because 4 months ago, 4 astronauts flew to the moon. They did not land. They did not walk the surface. They simply watched it from 4,000 miles above. And in 7 hours of observation, the moon showed them something nobody expected. 6 times, brief points of light erupted from the darkness of the lunar surface. 6 meteoroid impacts in 7 hours. Each one a fragment of the ancient solar system, a rock smaller than a boulder, but larger than dust, traveling at 40,000 miles per hour. Each one vaporizing on contact. Each one leaving a permanent scar in soil that has preserved every scar it has ever received since the beginning of the solar system. Scientists at Johnson Space Center screamed when they saw the data. They had expected silence. The moon gave them 6 explosions in 7 hours. On Earth, objects that size never reach the ground. The atmosphere burns them to nothing long before they arrive. We never see them. We never feel them. On the moon, there is no atmosphere. Every rock, every particle, every fragment of the ancient solar system traveling through the void at tens of thousands of miles per hour arrives at full speed. Every single day. Now imagine standing on that surface, not watching from 4,000 miles away in the safety of a pressurized capsule. Standing on it, in a suit that has never been fully tested, on terrain that has never been walked, in a darkness so complete that your helmet light is the only illumination between you and a void that stretches to the edge of the solar system. And somewhere above you, invisible, silent, arriving without warning, rocks. Every single day. This is where Artemis 3 is going. This is what those two souls will face, and they will face it, having already experienced what deep space does to the human body on the journey there. Before any soul descends to that surface, they will have spent days in the Orion capsule orbiting the moon. And we know, with scientific precision, exactly what those days will do to them. Because 4 months ago, Artemis 2 showed us Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen. 10 days in deep space, 252,000 miles from Earth. Farther from home than any human being had traveled since 1972. The moment gravity disappeared, their bodies began to change. Fluid that normally sits in the legs, held there by the simple, constant pull of Earth, flooded upward into the face and chest within hours. Their faces swelled, their sinuses clogged, their hearts began to shrink. Not from illness, from the cold efficiency of a body that had decided gravity was no longer coming back. Their bones began quietly dissolving, not catastrophically, not in ways visible to the eye, but at the cellular level, deep in the tissue. The signal that tells a skeleton to stay strong had simply vanished. And without that signal, the body begins, slowly and methodically, to dismantle what it no longer believes it needs. This is what the journey does, before a single boot touches the surface. But the journey was not the only thing Artemis 2 measured. Mounted on the wall of the Orion capsule were small devices, the size of USB drives, each one containing living human bone marrow grown from the crew's own cells before launch. Living tissue sent into the abyss to absorb the same radiation as the souls beside it. They called the experiment Avatar because the chips were not there to study 10 days of damage. They were there to predict what happens to a human body across an entire mission. What deep space radiation, galactic cosmic rays, heavy iron ions traveling at nearly the speed of light, particles that tear through human cells and leave permanent errors written into DNA, does across not 10 days, but weeks, months, the duration of an Artemis 3 surface mission. Apollo 17 lasted 12 days in total. Artemis 3 could last longer on the surface alone. And unlike Apollo, the Artemis 3 crew will not quickly retreat to Earth's magnetic shelter. They will work for days, perhaps weeks, on a surface bombarded by the full, unfiltered force of deep space radiation. With only the fabric of a suit, never fully tested in this environment, standing between their cells and the particles that, given enough time, rewrite the body in ways that cannot be undone. Eugene Cernan spent 3 days on the moon. He came home. Cernan's crew was never exposed to the radiation environment of the South Pole. Artemis 3 will be. And what Cernan called magnificent, Artemis 3 will have to call survivable. To understand how different this is, you need to understand what Apollo 17 deliberately chose. NASA did not select the Taurus Littrow Valley by accident. They chose it because it was safe. Near the lunar equator, bathed in consistent sunlight, relatively flat, geologically stable, a place where the temperature swings were survivable, where the terrain would not swallow a rover whole, where if something went wrong, there was at least a fighting chance. Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt, the only geologist ever to walk on another world, spent 3 days on that surface. They drove 35 kilometers across it. They collected 110 kilograms of rock. They planted instruments that listened for moonquakes for years after they left. And even there, even in the most carefully chosen, most forgiving valley, NASA could find on the entire lunar surface, the abyss pushed back. The temperature swung 300 degrees Celsius between sunlit ground and shadow, across a distance you could walk in seconds. Lunar dust, ancient, jagged at the microscopic level, each particle a tiny blade never smoothed by wind or water, worked its way into every joint of their suits. Harrison Schmitt developed lunar hay fever within hours of stepping outside. In the safest place on the moon, Apollo chose mercy. Artemis 3 has no such luxury. Where Apollo went to a valley, the sun always reached. Artemis 3 is going to craters the sun has never touched. Where Apollo's suits were tested in terrain, NASA had carefully mapped Artemis. 3 suits have never been tested in the environment they were built for, where Apollo could afford to be careful about where it stepped. Artemis 3 will step where no soul has ever stepped before. Apollo 17 chose the safest path. Artemis 3 has no safe path. So why did we wait 52 years to return? And why, when we finally do return, are we going to the most dangerous place we could choose? The answer is not glory. It is not flags. It is not the weight of history or the desire to stand where no soul has stood before. The answer is water. In those 52 years of absence, humanity sent robots where humans could not go. Orbiters, rovers, instruments that carried no heartbeat but carried something more patient than any human being. They mapped. They measured. They slowly assembled a picture of the moon that Apollo never had. And what they found in the permanent darkness of the South Pole changed everything. Frozen into the ancient soil of those lightless craters, preserved in a cold so absolute that nothing has disturbed it in 4 billion years, is water ice. Water that can be split into hydrogen and oxygen. Rocket fuel, breathable air, drinking water. The resource that transforms the moon from a destination into something far more valuable. A port, a place where ships traveling deeper into the solar system can stop, refuel, and continue. To Mars, to the asteroids, to places we cannot yet name. This is why Artemis 3 is not going to the valley. This is why 2 souls are being asked to go where no human has ever gone, and because what is buried there may be the key to everything that comes next. On December 14th, 1972, Eugene Cernan climbed a ladder. He looked back at the Taurus Littrow Valley one last time, at the tracks their rover had left in the ancient dust, at the instruments still humming quietly in the silence, at a world that had let 12 human souls walk its surface and taken none of them. He spoke his last words on the moon. We leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return. And he left. 52 years later, those footprints are still there, perfectly preserved, undisturbed, waiting. And somewhere in the permanent darkness of the South Pole, a few hundred kilometers from where Cernan stood, water ice that formed before our sun had planets is still waiting too. It has waited 4 billion years. It can wait a little longer, because they are coming. 2 souls, descending not to a valley chosen for its mercy, but to the edge of what is possible. To terrain the moon has kept in darkness since before life existed on this planet, in suits never tested in the environment they were built for, on a surface struck by rocks every single day. Cernan believed we would return in 10 years. It took 52. But the footprints are still there. And soon, there will be new ones, in a darkness that has never known them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.